we're going to be doing a reseal on this lower unit here. The reason that you do a reseal on these is because these seals here, if you look, they are held on by a little spring, and you just kind of go around the seal like this to check them, and you just check if there's a little bit of rust on that spring. Because you only ever get down here when you do the impellers every like 300 hours, that's the only time that you see that and can inspect it. So if you see any rust on the spring, you might as well go ahead and change it, because if that spring fails, it's going to let water in your lower unit, and you could basically blow up your lower unit if you don't address it soon enough. Or if, say, this seal fails, you change your gear lube and 100 hours goes by before you change again, that's going to blow up your lower unit. There's the same thing for this seal here. You just take it and you're going to look at the spring like that and roll around there, so that way you can see. Kind of hard to see it right there, but it's the same thing as this one and that one. I'm going to show you how to change both these today. They're very easy to get to. You're going to take your water pump housing off. A lot of times the cup will come out of the housing. Then we're going to slide our impeller off of the drive shaft. Then you're going to be able to pull off your water pump housing plate. Well, actually, before you do that, you're going to have to take this thing off of the impeller, which these, sometimes you have to cut them off if they're stuck on there. You just cut it with a little grinder and then put a new one on there. Not that big of a deal. But once you get under the plate, you'll see this seal here. If this thing comes off, you obviously want to change that out too, because this sits on top of here, which helps to protect those seals. So I like to shove a bunch of grease down in there to help keep them from failing. But what we need to do now is go ahead and spin this around. We got to get this Woodruff key out of here in order to pull this right here out to change those seals. You got 4 12mm bolts. We're going to take those out, take 2 screwdrivers and pry it like this. So let me get the Woodruff key out first. These are very important to take these out a specific way, because if you see, there's only a little bit there, and you want to take something beefy. So we're going to want something that is beefy in order to hammer that out. I like using one of these or one of these because it's heavy, but you need to get the right angle, because if you don't get the right angle, then you are going to risk shearing it off and having yourself a big problem. So let's get this out. So I like to hold an angle like that. That way you can get in there. And you don't want to do what I just did and drop it down in there. So now I got to get it out of there, which usually isn't that bad. Just get my old magnet here. Oh, this one's too big. I got to fish this key out of there real quick. Bang. So we're going to take 2 screwdrivers, and I try to go towards the ends of them, so like one on this corner and one on this corner. That way you can kind of twist it a little bit when you try and come up. See, I twist it a little bit. Pop that out, and then we can pretty much just leave that the way it is and clean this off. Actually, if you look in here, you can see there's a little bit of water there. So this was getting water into there. So it's a good thing we're doing this. Now, something that I want to point out is that you notice how this has got a lip and it sits down. If you look in there, you can see there's a race that sits right there. You're going to want to make sure that that sits properly into here when you push this thing down. So when we push it down, you're going to want this to sit all the way up in there. Otherwise, it can hit that and stop. And actually, this thing looks almost a little rusty, like this has previously had some water in there, but it'll be all right. That's just what they look like after they get so many hours. So let me put this in the vise so we can pop the seals out. Now when you put this in the vise, you see how this has got like an angle to it. You want to go on this side and that side with this right here. So when we put that in there, we're going to be able to sit like this, and we want it on that edge because that's flat. Tighten that down. Okay, now getting these out are actually pretty easy. We're going to take a screwdriver and we're just going to put it right there on the edge. And as you pull up, you're going to want to kind of pull back because this is going to pop out. You can see the water right there. So it was getting water in there. Both those are out, easy peasy, just like that. Now we need to clean this so we can put our seals in. So the way I like to do this is I just take a razor blade and then I hold it like that and I just run it along. And that takes all that junk out of there. Alright, so now we are pretty much all nice and clean and we're ready to stick our new seals in there, which again is very easy. So all you need is a socket to push these seals down. I like a 1 1/4 inch socket because it fits the seals nicely to where I can actually push this down without damaging the seal. And I'm just going to use some form of gasket on it. Normally I like the Johnson Evinrude gasket maker, but I don't have any of that, so I'm just going to use this, put it around the seal, and we'll push them in. So you see how that fits nice on that seal and it doesn't hit this lip. It just goes right around the edge of it. That's what you want. And this just helps it slide down in there a little bit better. Stick it right there. Push it down. And this should go right in very easily. There you go. And it slides right down. Easy peasy. Hit the next one up. And you'll feel it seat all the way down too. There you go. And that is pretty much it on this one here. So let me clean this off and we'll stick this down in there. Alright, so on this, it's very important that you notice this right here has a channel there. And that channel needs to go to that little hole right there. So there's a little hole right there. So that hole right there, you need to make sure that that channel lines up with this one here. So this only goes in one way. That little thing right there sticks to the front. Also, your bolt pattern won't line up anyway, but I'm going to put a little bit of grease around that O-ring. So when we slide it down, just remember what I said about those races and stuff falling into this. You do not want to force this. You just want to get it to go down straight and smooth. So you want to line these up to where it'll slide down smoothly, because these are shims and you can bend them if you try and force it. Okay, so just go real slow with it. And if it doesn't go down, then you take it up and realign your shims. If you have to, you can take the shims out and stick them up in here. Another important thing is when you put these things in, do not get grease on the bottom of them. You do want to grease the threads, but you don't want to put grease on the bottom, because if not, you'll thread it all the way down and you'll crack your case here because the grease won't compress. So just take a note of that, that when you put these on, you only grease the threads, not the tip of the bolt. And what I'd like to do is I like to load this up with grease. So that spring, again, that's their main thing that we're trying to protect. So I just jam grease in here is what I do. And then that way, it just keeps that grease around that spring to help it stay from rusting. And then that's pretty much it. We'll slide our piece down on there. And a new piece there. And I'll just pop down into place whenever you put the water pump housing on there. Water pump plate gasket. Drop that on there. There we go. New water pump plate. Kits come with a new Woodruff key. And I like to grease this up. Slide this in there. Now we're going to turn this to the side because we're going to have to tap it. There we go. So that's in there. Now let's go ahead and grease all this up. Yeah. If you live in freshwater, you probably don't do stuff like this, but saltwater, if you got to take this thing back apart, grease is your friend. Now these impellers are going to have a little tab there. You see that tab? And on that tab, that's where your keyway goes. And when you slide this down, you know right where that thing goes. So this next part is pretty important. These washers are crucially important because you'll have a flat washer, and then you'll have a wavy washer, and then you'll have a flat washer. You want to make sure you keep these exactly like that, so that way there's one, there you go, one in the middle is wavy, and then two flats on this side, and this preloads your pinion gear. So those go on like that. We're going to do a little bit of greasy grease. Then you'll have your plastic piece. I like to do a little bit more grease. Then you got your metal piece. You just tap this down. There you go. And then inside of our housing here, I'm going to put a little bit of grease right there, and we'll stick our new O-ring in there. Then we'll pull this O-ring out, put a little grease around here to hold it, the new one in there, stick our new O-ring on there, and then we'll take our new cup, and you got a little lip right here. Just going to turn it to where that lip fits right into here, and that'll fit right down in there. Put a little bit of grease around your O-ring to keep it in there when we put this down. And just twist your drive shaft as you put this down. It'll fit right down in the spot, and then we can put our bolts in there and tighten it down. Got all our new bolts with the new kit. And that's how you get your water pump impeller on there after you reseal the drive shaft. There is this right here. So if you need to take that one out, that one is very simple. You just take a pick in there, pop it out, put the new one in there. That one's very simple. This one is the one that gives everybody the trouble. We need to flip this gear case on its side so that way I can get in here and show you how to change this one. I'm going to just put the skeg in the vise there and lay it right here. So let me do that. Alright, there are a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to go with the screwdriver and the puller here, which this way is probably the best way to do it. And we're going to go 4 corners. So one here, one there, one here, one there. And you're going to go in between the seal and the actual bearing carrier. We're just going to hammer this in there a little bit. And then we're going to twist this. And that is going to bend the seal over. And we're going to do that in all 4 positions, which is going to relieve a lot of the pressure. Then we can come back with our pick and pick that lip that you just bent over and be able to get this seal out of here without scratching your prop shaft. Sometimes you have to go bend it a little bit more. So that's how you get these seals out. Now the bottom one's going to be a little bit more of a challenge, but the main thing is you do not want to scratch your prop shaft, because if you scratch your prop shaft, you're going to be in a world of hurt. Once you get your seals out, we're going to want to stick a rag down in here. You're going to clean all this up. Spin the prop shaft a couple times because we want to get everything off of the prop shaft to make sure it's nice and clean. We want to inspect the prop shaft because you never know who's been in here before you. And a lot of people like to use the screw method, which I'm not against it. I use it a lot too, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can mess it up. So let's take a look here at the prop shaft. We're looking good. This thing's definitely worn. I mean, it's older, but Definitely got a wear line on there, but no scratches. So we're good to go on that. Now we just need to push our new seals in there. And to do this, we're going to be using a piece of PVC pipe. This one is my V8 one. Generally, I only use this side of it to push down the seals, but it'll also double for that. Main thing is that on your seals, it'll push it down. So we're going to go ahead and put some gasket sealant on there, or gasket maker, gasket compound, whatever you got. And drop that thing down on there like that. It'll go down, it'll push out, and we'll push this thing down. There it goes. It'll pop down into place. Make sure it's seated, and we can do our next one. So take our next seal. Same thing. Gasket maker. Set that down on there. And it'll pop down into place. Once you get those down in there, just like we did with the other one, we're going to load this up with grease, and then we'll put our prop and all that on when we get to the boat and set that up. Right now, I'm not going to do anything with that. I'm just to leave that the way it is. But that is how you reseal your gear case. I'm going to go ahead and change my gear lube. I do need to put this little thing on there. These break quite often when you break them off. They get brittle, so if you just barely touch them, sometimes those will snap off. Got a new one here put on there, so not a big deal there. But yeah, that's how you reseal your gear case.